Welcome to the Blackout live from New York with your host, me, Tasemere. This segment's purpose is to celebrate Black folks across the diaspora and to have an open dialogue about Black economics, how we reimagine trends in business, and explore the magic that we have. I want to jump in. Today, I have the pleasure of bringing to the Blackout Robert, who is one of my network mates on BlackUSA.News. He hosts a show entitled The Robert Report. Welcome, Robert.
Hello.
How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you.
So let's just jump right into it. I know you're in DC right now, but I remember you said that you come from or have lived in Mississippi. So how did you get to DC?
Great question. Thank you for having me on your show today. To answer your question, I am in the DC area right now. I live in Montgomery County, Maryland. And I am originally from Mississippi, as you said, born and raised. And I made it to DC by way of Howard University. One of my neighbors, father and mother, had gone to Howard. And then he was a Howard grad, had graduated from Howard. I think his mother graduated from Howard. And they were pretty influential people in our community. And my neighbor, Shaq Taylor, who he is now a state representative, I believe, in Mississippi. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was cutting the yard. It was March or April, and he walked to the yard and said, "Man, where you going to college?" And I was like, "Well, I got an idea of where I'm going, but they had no real solid idea." He said, "Hey, man, you should check out." And I looked into the application process, and I applied, and I got in. So that was March, April, May 2003, and I got to Howard in 2008, in August 2003. So my college tenure at Howard University. So that's how I made it to DC. I'd never visited before. I just decided to show up.
So how was that experience from Mississippi to now being in DC at a phenomenal institution like Howard? How was that? What was that like for you?
So I know you're in New York. I assume you're in New York City. New York no, I visited Atlanta before, but as a young guy, and I was young, I was a boy. And but my first major city that I visited by myself was New York City. I visited New York City in the summer of 2001, and that's when I'll date folks right now. That's when I think it's Jagged Edge had that song "What Party Yet." I think there was a song. Yep. And as soon as I got to New York, I was like, man, this is a cool song. And there was a couple other things going on. I think I was 17, maybe 16 at the time. And I had told myself I wanted to go, and I had a job at McDonald's in my hometown, Mississippi. So I saved up some money for a few months. And my family had never gone to New York. But I have an auntie. Shout out to my auntie Reed. Shout out to my grandmother. My grandmother turned 85 years old today. Shout out.
Oh, happy birthday, Grandma! Woo woo! Happy birthday, Grandma!
So her sister is my auntie. She's 88 now. Her name is Auntie Reed. She lives in Rochdale Village in Jamaica. And so they would always come to Mississippi and visit, and we never returned the favor. So I said, you know what, they would come back. Now her two children, 3 children. Yeah, 3 children would come. I said, I'm gonna go up there one day. So I saved up some money. I bought my own ticket. I went Amtrak, decided to go to New York City. So I was every weeks. I had my own money, which I had about $300 and some. I was like, I'm finna live. Man, that money was gone in a week and a half. And I was truly broke in New York City. And I was staying with my auntie and the family. But when I say I spent that $300 and I was like, what do I had a pair of shoes and I ate every day. And they didn't let me starve, but I had $300. It was gone. I was like, what am I gonna do? So I met a lot of people in New York City. And then I came back to Mississippi. It changed my And that summer, I knew what I was going to say. And that summer, the World Trade Center was still alive and tall. And my cousin took me downtown and he took me to the World Trade Center. And he said, look up. And it was so high, I had to lean. I had to lean that song in New York City, lean back. I had to lean all the way back. I had to bend my whole back just to look up into the sky. I could see the top of it. And I was like, dude, I can't just do like this. He's like, yeah, people take helicopter trips. And then I told myself, to New York, I'm gonna have enough money to take a helicopter trip. Well, I think I ended up leaving in July 2020, 2001. And in September 11th, I was in school suspension. And somebody came, I was in high school, and somebody said, man, the World Trade Center got hit, the White House got hit, the Pentagon got hit, American under attack. I was like, you BS. Nobody had knocked that building down. I just saw it 3 months ago. And lo and behold, that building smashed. I was like, whoa. Guess I won't get a chance to go to the World Trade Center now. Not making jokes of it, but hey, I won't. That was my goals. And shout out to those people who suffered that calamity some 21 years ago, or coming up on. And so that was my buffer between Mississippi and New York City. And so Mississippi and DC, between coming from Mississippi to DC, is I had city, which is so fast. New York City is 100 times, but DC is about 50 times faster than Mississippi. So I went from 0 to 100 real quick, and then back to Mississippi. You see how these hip hop swing in here? I'm trying to catch up with my hip hop. I'm 37 years old, like I'm old. So that's how I got to DC, Washington, DC.
I love the fact that you came to visit us here in New York. I too remember, I think 9/11 is one of those just monumental time periods where everybody remember where they were, what they were doing, maybe what they were wearing when they found out about the plane that had went into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. And I remember I was in high school, and at the time I went to John Jay High School, which is now a charter school for law, journalism, and research, I believe. But I was in history class. And the way that the window was positioned, you just daze out the window a bit. And I remember when I kind of saw the plane hit the building, and then my teacher came in and said that, the Twin Towers had been attacked, and none of us believed that. We were like you, like, what do you mean? That's not something that's gonna happen. I also remember at the time one of my brothers was going into the Air Force, and he was leaving to go to basic training, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope he was not on that plane. My dad came to pick me up, and we had to walk home because it was so chaotic at that time. The train system was interrupted. The bus was overcrowded, and we had to walk home. There was no getting in a taxi. There was no doing anything, and it was very disruptive at that moment. Fast forward, when I got to high school, I actually met people. I had to change from John Jay to another high school, and that's a story for a whole nother day about what happened with that. But when I got to my second high school, I actually met people whose parents perished in the attack, and to hear how they were before that happened, and then shortly after, when I met them, how their lives have been changed upside down, is still something that I think a lot of people are still trying to piece themselves back together. But now we have a new tower. Is not the World Trade. It is a remembrance of what happened, that many people come and visit, and that was really, really, really special. But I'm glad that you were able to come to New York. And $300, yes, can go in like a blink of an eye, like just like that. Once you pay to get on the train, once you buy some food, if you dare to buy an outfit, that's what can happen.
Yeah, that's right. I remember I bought some tennis shoes, and my cousin, he was in New York, and he passed away when I was in college. He was one of my good friends, man. I knew for a while. He came to visited me, then we spent some time together. And when I was he ended up getting murdered. Crazy, Keith. I missed the heck out of you today. Well, not I don't say every day now because I don't really think about it as much. But when he got murdered, it was rough. But him and his father was my uncle. I mean, it was my cousin and my other cousin. Two cousins were brothers. They were older. They were grown men. They showed me around New York City. Had two young cousins. And as a matter of fact, I may send this to my cousins. I hadn't talked to them in years. So shout out Keith. But he sold me a red Coogee sweater. So what is this? And he was like, man, this is Coogee. I said, I don't know anything about Coogee, man. I know Polo, but you talking about a Coogee. So he's like, give me $30 for it. I didn't know. He gave me the sweater. He literally gave me $30. That sweater probably cost $200. I didn't know. I got that in Mississippi. I got on these huge red. It's red, and I'm 5'10". I'm tall as heck. I got on this sweater, and I didn't know the value of that sweater, man. I wore it for years after that. I wore it through Howard. Yeah, I love my Coogee sweater. That was my first sense of style outside of Mississippi. I had a Coogee sweater. So that was New York. I love New York. I can't live in New York City. I've been asked to live in New York City. I was offered a job with Nielsen. No, this wasn't Nielsen Media. This was Scarborough Research. And Nielsen Media is in downtown New York. It's a research firm. And I taken a class at Howard. This was summer 2008. Had taken a class at Howard in media research methods. And shout out to my professor, Professor Zach, and my 7 or 8 classmates I had. I love New York City. I was like, I'm moving here. Then I was staying in what are the boroughs?
Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Staten Island.
I was staying in Brooklyn off of Raff Avenue. And I had some friends there. And they were staying in the basement of this huge brownstone. And I called my buddy. I said, hey, man, because we went to Howard together. Shout out to Sir Fleming. And shout out to Matt. I hadn't talked to those guys in years. I need to reach out to them. I might send them a video. And I said, sir, man, come to New York. Because he graduated a year before, 2 before me at Howard. He was like, hey, come to New York. So I show up. And he's like, man, I didn't know you was coming. I didn't know you was going to ask me to come. So I asked him, he said, come on up. So I get to New York. And I got all my belongings. I'm basically, I don't have anywhere to go. So I showed up to New York, and I called him and said, hey, I told you I'm coming. I'm here. We just talked. So he said, hey, give me one moment. He hung the phone up. I said, what the heck? Did you just hang the phone up? I'm just getting off the bus. So I called, he don't answer the phone. I'm like, hold up. Whoa, what's going on? So he finally answered the phone. He said, hey, here's my address. So I show up. And he got a roommate. I'm like, I don't care, but his roommate mean mugging me. I'm like, what's up? So his roommate was like, yeah, I gotta talk to you. I'm like, all right, but why you gotta talk to me like that? So he was like, so what you doing here? I'm like, man, me and Sir know each other from college. I'm like, sir, did you tell him? Sir, like, no, I hadn't told him anything. I said, dude, man, you been talking about me coming to the police. And I show up, I got class in the morning, and you're telling me that you don't. So his roommate was like, all right, fine, I'm gonna give you like a couple of days to stay here. I'm like, a couple of days. Oh, so mind you, I had a few bucks in my pocket. I had like $1,500 in my pocket, and the school I had paid for class at NYU, and the school, the NYU Professional Studies, I had paid for the class like $2,500. I just said that, and they were going to reimburse me money, but it was going to take about 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. So I got $1,500 in my pocket. I know that's going to be just like that in New York. What am I going to do? I can't find a room. It's like DC. We can find a room $500 for a month. This is New York. I'm going to go 15. How am I going to get on the train? Then I got to figure out how to get to school. So I'm like, so the guy Matt had a test for me. So Saturday morning, I went to school all the week, and Matt was kind of standoffish. So I went to that Saturday morning, he wake me up. Wake up. So I'm in the so I slept in the closet. So the closet were. So my homeboy was like, yeah, you can stay here. So I get there, and I'm like, cool. I can take your room. So he's like, nah, you gonna stay in the closet. I'm like, dude, I'm not. So I get to the closet. The closet big as a bedroom. It's just got a window. I'm just like, dude, this is it's a whole room apartment. I'm like, dang. So I stayed in the room. I stayed in the closet. So it was crazy, right? So I'm like, sir, man, you got me bent, man. And you tripping. So Saturday morning comes, Matt wake me up. Hey, get up. Let's go. Man, I talked to you yesterday. Where are we going? Like this, I'm getting lost in these conversations, right? So Matt sent me on a mission where I had to help him pick up a piano for his mother and take it to her new apartment up some narrow stairs. Now this piano was probably 800 pounds. No, it wasn't a piano. It was like a Chester, like a China cabinet, and we had to like flip it over the narrow stairs. It was crazy, but I did it. And when we got into the apartment, it was too tall to fit in the apartment. I said, I'm gone. They'll kill me coming up here. So Matt saw that I was a true soldier. And he let me stay. Right? So part of my contract with NYU was that they were going to give me housing. So, but it was going. I didn't get housed. I got there at MA. The housing, it was at a dorm. I forgot what street it was. A dorm on NYU campus. And I bring it up because I'm getting to why I chose not to stay in New York. Now, I love New York. I had a good time. We were partying. We were doing what guys do. And we was traveling the city. I was going to Times Square at 4 o'clock in the morning. I didn't know I was stupid. And I was getting on the train at 3:45 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They was like, dude, you trying to get yourself killed. I'm like, I don't know. It's 24-hour city. I'm lit. I mean, I'm walking around Times Square all night until the light comes. The sun show up. I'm the craziest stuff. I saw the city when it was dirty, and then when they cleaned it up, I was like, damn. I was like, this place was a mess 10 minutes ago. And it was just like that, clean. I was like, New York got it going on. I'm here for the long run. So I was at NYU one night in my dorm, and it was right on one of the major thoroughways around the campus. So I love NYU, as a matter of fact. I love Zacon, School of Professional Studies, Nielsen Media, Scarborough Research, internship at Scarborough. So I was in my dorm and woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I looked out the window, and it was 10,000 people outside during the middle of the week. I said, heck no, it's too much going on here for me here. I may not be productive because I'm gonna get caught up in the nightlife. These people are like, oh, they fuck like, I don't know what they doing. I don't know what they got going on. So I forgot the lady's name. She offered me a job at Scarborough Research. She took me to this nice Mediterranean restaurant, and I'm eating. Right, I'm like, this food is so good. And she's like, we need to talk. I'm like, what you? I'm in New York there when they say you need to talk, you need to put your food down. So I'm like, why would you take me out to eat? To talk? This doesn't make any sense. We could have did this in the office. So I had a half plate of food left, and I had to just leave, and I was pissed. But she said, hey, I'm gonna give you a job. I'm gonna pay you $50,000. I said, man, that's a lot of money. I'm coming straight out of Howard. I'm thinking about DC, right? And then I said, where am I gonna live? Because I work downtown. Train prices were high. And I'm like, how much is an apartment gonna be in the city? I couldn't live in the city. I didn't even have no money to pretty much live in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. So I was gonna be living somewhere out. And I said, man, I'm sorry. I can't survive off $50,000 in New York City. That wouldn't even cover me. That'll cover train, and that wouldn't even cover health insurance. So she was like, well, that's all I can offer you. I said, well, I didn't want to tell her that my professor had told me that they had money. My professor was like, they got a lot of freaking money over there. Just believe it. Just be cool, and you'll get the job. They didn't give me money for a internship, which was cool. I wasn't tripping on that. Because NYU had to get my funds back. Or somebody in the Nielsen NYU connection had given me my money back. But I just couldn't live in New York City. It was too much. It was too much going on. And I know I was successfully getting involved in all the going on that be going on in New York City. Off of 50 grand. And 50 grand would have not been a lot of money.
Point, New York City is very expensive to live here. And also, if you want to partake in the things that you mentioned, like you want to experience nightlife, you want to go out and have a great time, it does take a lot of money to enjoy New York and not just live in New York. Those are almost two different things that you have to think about because, you know, now living in the outer boroughs and not in Manhattan, which is also a borough, can also be rather expensive. Brooklyn is expensive. Queens is expensive. The Bronx is expensive. I would venture to say Staten Island is probably getting more expensive. New Jersey is also quite expensive too. But those are also perspective, right? Because for some people, it's more affordable to live in Brooklyn than living in Manhattan. And other people are kind of like, oh my gosh, this is really testing my ability to budget and money manage. And also, if you want to just have a good time, it's sometimes challenging to have a good time. And that also is around perspective of what you think a good time is, because you can definitely drop $200 on just dinner. Like just having dinner with maybe some wine or a beverage or something like that for two people. That can easily be a $200 kind of expense. And if that's what you feel is a good time, you have to figure out how much of a good time can you often have. Also in New York, people work really hard, right? Like it's not like when I hear people coming from other cities and they kind of want to stop working at exactly 5 o'clock. That doesn't always happen in New York. So it can be a little bit of a challenge trying to figure out what you feel your work-life balance can be. But I want to know about your experience going to Howard, because there is a conversation around historically Black colleges and universities, and I have to say it that way because I always mess up the acronym, but there is a resurgence of people wanting to go to historically Black colleges and universities. And as someone who attended, I would love to get your experience of what that was like for you, and how do you think it has impacted your career?
So that's a pretty broad question you just asked. All right, and I say that because it just is, because it's so many moving parts. I've only been to one HBCU, but there's so many moving parts to an HBCU. So is there anything in particular, and then maybe we can go from there?
Well, I want to know. For full disclosure, I have not gone to a HBCU at all, right? And I had my rationale about why I chose not to go. And before we get into my rationale about why I chose not to go, I know that your friend, your childhood friend or neighbor, really had influenced Howard. But when you got there, what was that feeling? If you could describe what it felt like being on a campus full of Black folks, because I went to a campus that was full of white folks. So what did that feel like, being on a campus full of Black people coming from the South?
Okay, so all right, that's a pretty particular question. And when I got to Howard, I did meet a lot of people who, just like your situation, they went to school with a lot of non-Black people. In my situation, I come from the Dallas community in Starkville, Mississippi. I live in the same. My neighborhood is down the street from Global University called Mississippi State University. Most people don't know about it unless you go. But we have an international population that I was interacting with since I was a child, because we football games. And to give a perspective of Mississippi State, a lot of people may not know about it, but a lot of people Dak Prescott. A lot of people know about Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice did not go to Mississippi State, but he's from my hometown. I've heard Travis Outlaw. Travis Outlaw, my high school.
Robert, can we unplug your mic because you're going in and out a bit? I can hear you a bit. Now you're frozen. Robert, you're frozen. I think we have lost Robert for a quick second. So as Robert tries to get his screen back, we are talking to Robert, who comes from, his hometown is Mississippi. He is now in Washington, D.C. He is a Harvard alum. And Howard, why did I say Howard? Howard alum. And we were talking about Robert's experience traveling to New York, which we know New York City can be quite expensive, to say the least. And he enjoyed it, and he had like a really great time going through the city and experiencing the city, and ultimately was offered a job here, but decided that this was not going to be his, place for numerous reasons. And we were just getting in hot and heavy into what his experience was like attending a historically Black college and university. And I'm very eager whenever I meet a Black person that did go to a HBCU, what their experience was like. I did not go to one. I was very intentional about why I didn't go to one, which hopefully Robert and I can get into my philosophy of why I didn't go. But I'm always interested in knowing and understanding how, that has impacted, that decision has impacted his life and his career and his experience there. So while we're waiting for him to get back, I went to a SUNY school, which is really a state school in New York. There's a few different ones here, but I chose to go to SUNY Oswego, which I felt was ultimately the best decision that I could have made for my undergraduate career. And that's because the school really met me where I currently was as an individual and as a student. My school, I come from New York, so of course I'm used to being in big settings with a lot of people, but that's not the way that I learn the best. And so I felt like Oswego gave me some sort of balance between classroom sizes, being able to experience another region where it was a large town and not a city. And so I got to experience things that, a town makeup kind of has, and meeting new people and having different experiences that I felt like had I gone somewhere else, it's likely that I might not have had those kinds of experiences. And also, Oswego was very generous in their financial aid package, which was very important to me because I did not want to leave undergraduate school with a huge amount of debt. At the time, I was not necessarily someone who thought I would go to law school or go to graduate school, but I was concerned about debt. And Oswego offered me a very generous package that made me attending college very affordable because my household income would not have been able to sustain a very expensive institution. That would have been really, really challenging for me to attend and be comfortable and not walk out of school like I went to medical school for undergrad. And so I was happy about that. However, because I didn't go to a historically Black college and university, I didn't experience things that other folks experience. So a perfect example would be Greek, Greek life. The Divine Nine was not on my campus. And so while other people were pledging and crossing into different Greek organizations in undergrad, that wasn't something that was part of my atmosphere, right? I didn't have those kinds of experiences. And so because I didn't, at some points, I kind of felt like I missed out on things. Also, we didn't have a big population of African or African American professors. And so that was also something that I probably missed out on. However, we did have sprinkles there. They were sprinkled in. And I did have the pleasure of having a different college experience where my professor became my advisor, and she really played a really big role in my development as an individual and as a professional, because she really taught me the importance of being able to think, which I know that for some people is an underrated kind of quality, but she really taught me to think of the world as a global place and being intentional about trying to understand as many moving parts as I could, understanding what I knew and what I know I do not know, so I can ask questions about what I don't know, at least, because I don't even know what I don't even know, right? But she definitely gave me skill sets that I think had I gone anywhere else, I likely would not have met her. Not sure if I would have developed those skill sets that have been able to transition in many areas of my life. And for that, I would always be internally grateful and indebted to her for that. And I feel like ultimately, because I chose to go to a SUNY school, that was my biggest takeaway. I'm almost not certain had I gone somewhere else, I would have been able to have had one person on campus see something that they wanted to cultivate inside of me and also decide to follow me throughout my life, really. She's someone that advocates for me. She continues to see me and meet me where I am and challenge me to think a bit differently, along with globally. And I know that some folks that have gone to historically Black colleges and universities feel like they've had that same experience, and kudos to you guys out there. I did get into two historically Black colleges, but when I saw those financial aid packets, those were definitely like, how am I going to find that money to go? Right? I was definitely very dissuaded because of the financial aid package. I think we have Robert back. Hello, Robert.
Hey, so yeah, back where we left off.
Back where we left off.
Right. So I grew up in a very diverse environment. I went to school with Asians from all over the diaspora, and really school with Europeans from over that part of the world. Not, I won't say diaspora, all over Asiatic countries. I went to school with Europeans that were from different European nations. I didn't realize that's older because they didn't really claim European. A lot of times it's white people. Then I went to school with Africans from different parts of the continent, and just normal, regular old Black folks and white folks from Mississippi. So I was comfortable interacting with a whole lot of Black folks because that's my neighborhood, Black. But we had a chance to go where we wanted to go. Now, you didn't hang out in a lot of different neighborhoods. They didn't hang out in yours, but we were all familiar with each other because we went to school, played Little League baseball together, basketball, football, see each other at public events. So when I got to Howard, I saw a lot of Black folks, but my thing was I had a lot of the women like me. I was like, dude, I never got this much acceptance in high school. These women like me, boy, I'm here. And that's what made me stay out, the ladies. And it went, not to get to nothing grotesque or anything or obscene, but it was just getting attention from more than just my male friends. I was like, wow, I'm talking to women who I know got a bunch of money, to those who are poor, just like I'm coming from. And so I was able to develop my people skills at that point. And it worked out better because I was talking to, I had friends with a lot of females and a lot of guys as well. And so going to that school was great for me. I heard a lot about these. I had did little bit of research, and I actually had dreadlocks in the moment. And I heard that DC was a dreadlock city. So when I showed up, I wasn't out of the ordinary. And so I was like, wow, okay, this is a dreadlock place. I mean, cool. I was well accepted, and I was given more respect from the gangsters that live around the block because kind of look like them. And then I walked like I was supposed to be here, even though I was by myself, walking at ungodly hours of the day and night, or the other night. So I just went from a very rural area to what I consider to be a metropolitan area, which is DC is just a real small town. once you get here and you understand it, it's just a small town. You bust a few blocks, you be in downtown, the projects, you be in the club district, you be in Maryland, you be in Virginia in 30 minutes, just hitting a few corners. And you have been in 15,000 people, you know. But that's what it was coming from me, coming from Mississippi in the South, coming to DC. And also I had people who were from Mississippi who were at Howard as well. I wasn't expecting that. I should have been, but I didn't come here knowing that I would meet many people from Mississippi. And we actually had a club, which I became a member of freshman year, and I eventually became president of junior year, I believe. But I met with those people. There was a lot of freshmen guys. A pick me up. Like, man, this city getting too much. We all kind of just catch up with each other, well, in front of the dorm, or see each other on the yard, or in the cafeteria. We all just talk, make sure we were good. You know, make sure we weren't getting lost in the sauce of the city. Because, you know, we got to go back home. And if you're different, yes, they're going to let you know. So you got to be able to deal with this, but also remember that when you go back home, you got to be able to deal with those people as well. And so that was my experience just on how I'm just going from Mississippi to DC and dealing with a vast number of Black people in one specific location. Because I was already kind of familiar with it, so it wasn't a big culture shock to me. And I really felt bad for those who it was a culture shock for. Because I'm saying, if you're Black, Afro-American, nigga, whatever you want to call it, Black person, or whatever you choose to, what adjective you choose to define your own heritage, and you come to Howard and you say, hey, I need to figure out how all of these Black people, I don't think that you got a real head start in life. I really don't. But then you got to learn how to deal with Black people and so you got to learn how to deal with them from whatever perspective that you learn how to deal with them. So I had friends like that who really didn't know how to deal with Black people. And they would look at me like, dang, how you do so well? I'm like, I'm Black. Like, I know these folks. We listen to the same freaking music. We like the same movies. And as far as history, we got the same history of domination, being so-called enslaved. So why can't we just build off of that? Not just talking about slavery, but why can't we build off what we got? Like I told you, where the party at? When I tell you about where the party at, you laugh. I learned about 50 Cent. I saw the guys on the block selling mixtapes. I was like, this is stuff in the movies. I get to see this for real. Like, I knew guys who sold mixtapes growing up, you know, but that was just like every now and then. But I mean, I saw the blocks, like they were selling books and movies and bootleg. Like, I could go out and they were selling fake shoes and hats and clothes. I'm like, whoa, this is live. And then I went back to Mississippi and I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do to myself? I exposed myself to something that I can't forget. It was like the movie The Matrix. So I went back to Mississippi and I was determined to go back to New York. NYU was one of my favorite. It was the school I wanted to go to. I think I had applied. I ordered some material. I was gonna go for psychology, and I ended up changing when I found out about Howard. But that was my thing. I just felt like I should understand. I felt like I should be comfortable at Howard, and so that was a long drawn out answer, logically long.
Well, for me, I was sharing while you were out that I did not go to a historically Black college or university. I actually went to a state school named SUNY Oswego, and I felt like the school really met me where I was at the moment. And the financial aid package was also really nice. So when I did get into more, like I got into Hampton and I got into Johnson C. Smith, but the financial aid packets were like super little. It was like almost non-existent, right? And I just knew that my family wasn't going to be able to really afford for me to be able to go. That was one reason, the financial burden of deciding to go. While I didn't know whether I was going to go to grad school or law school, I knew that I didn't want to come out of a 4-year college with like all this debt. And the second reason why I didn't go, and I hope that this doesn't come back to bite me in my butt, but I really wanted to learn in a space that reflected what the real world was going to look like for me. And when I decided to go to SUNY Oswego, we did have a pretty decent Black population on campus. And what I found was that it was groupings of like, okay, these Black people are all the same, right? And trying to figure out like, maybe I do listen to R&B and hip hop, but I also like country. And I also want to explore this other culture. And I also want to learn these other things, because when I go to work, I'm not just going to be working with Black people, right? And so that was really like, I really wanted to understand what it would look like to have to be on a team with someone else, to learn somebody else's culture that wasn't necessarily my culture, and how would I really differentiate myself in a room full of Black folks when we all look, sound, maybe walk the same, but I also kind of like other things that maybe some Black people don't like or haven't really thought about. So my decision was to go to SUNY Oswego. I felt like it met my moment of where I was, but I also gave up, Greek life. I didn't have Greeks on campus, right? I didn't have the Divine Nine, wasn't strolling around all the time. I also didn't get to have a lot of professors that also looked like me. We had sprinkles at my school. But I feel like overall, I probably went to the best place that was for me. I'm not sure if I went back in time, would I decide to go to a historically Black college or university. While I think they're super cool and I think that they definitely have their place and serve people, I'm not sure if that would have been helpful for me, because I feel like, if I'm gonna just keep it real, I feel like our community has a lot of the same rhetoric all the time. And I feel like when I meet other people, I get a different piece of the propaganda that's important for me to understand how to position myself. And I'm not sure that historically Black colleges or universities really offer a global view of what is happening, or if it's more like a cyclone.
And I understand what you're saying. And no, if any offense was supposed to be taken, there's none taken. Because here's the deal, I love my I love my university. I'm actually a son. We graduate. I don't know if you just go to school to you get qualified, but I'm a son of Howard. So I got personal special rights and privileges that internally we have our own conversation, but externally there's some things we're not going to agree on or talk about with people outside of our system. And it's HBCU whole worldwide, but also is your own specific things. We're not going to, even if you're 100% right about, we're not going to agree with you if you're not. Now on the inside, we're going to have all our talks because it's an understood thing. So with me, I grew up in the real world. I grew up in Starkville, Mississippi. And in Starkville, Mississippi, we got the raw of life. It was raw. And when I say that, first thing I know a lot of people might say, so white people did this? I never said anything about white people at all. I grew up with a lot of people, and I got the raw. It's in the South, but I got real people and real interactions with people. And part of what I need to do was come to Howard to be more developed on an international level, because I didn't know. I had a few African people that were in my town that I went to school with. I wasn't surrounded by Africans, or I didn't really even know about the Caribbean. I didn't know that there were so many Caribbean islands. Like, you take that for granted because you're from New York City. I'm just assuming, but I think you would. I didn't know that there were blacks in certain parts of Europe. I didn't know that. So when I get to Howard, I knew about Greek life, but I wasn't so keen on that. And when I got to Howard, it's something that you can easily forget. Now you're going to see it, especially when it's springtime, or even sometimes in the fall when they're doing their strolls. But it's so much going on a HBCU campus that's a small part, because it's more than Greek life. It's more, more than just the Divine Nine. There's probably 50, 60 fraternities at Howard. I personally didn't join any of them. I sought to when I was young, freshman, but it was just, I was like, it's too much going on. It's too much happening for me to just do that just because. Now, looking back on it, maybe I should have, but I don't regret it. But I'm like, well, maybe I could have took that semester or a year and just forfeited my my GPA, because that's what was going to happen. I was going to forfeit my GPA personally. That's what happened to me. I'm not saying it was what happened to anybody else, or what would or did not happen to another person. That's what was going to happen to me. I was going to forfeit my GPA. All right. If you're at Howard, if you are a Howard alumni and you decide to pledge and you forfeited your GPA, this is not a direct attack or assault or anything that has to do with you. I'm talking about Robert Washington. I would have forfeited my good swath, at least 2 points, 2 whole points on my GPA. So I decided not to do it. But besides that, it's so much happening. And then we're in the heart of Washington, D.C., so we really didn't have to leave Northwest. And D.C. is built up in the 4 quadrants: Northwest, Northeast, Southeast, and Southwest. As a Howard student, you really didn't have to leave Northwest D.C. You did not have to leave the neighborhood community surrounding Howard, because it was just that much activity going on. Anything else was going to work, going to internship, visiting people in different parts of the city was a beautiful thing. But you didn't have to leave Howard. There's a whole community here at the university. So I think it was a good thing that I came here and got a chance to experience what other people had to offer outside of, because my hometown was Mississippi State, was started in Mississippi. Mississippi State University was just at what you spoke of. It was a state school, and you knew that it was going to be comprised of a lot of people from the state, and I didn't want that. Although I did apply to Mississippi State University, and I think I got accepted. It was probably give me a bunch of money to go. I was a great student in school, but I just I want to see something different, and so that's why I chose Howard. That's why I did around something a lot more different.
So to answer your question, I grew up with, Caribbean people were some of my closest and are still some of my closest friends. New York City does give you this whole global view, because you can go to any little part and get authentic food, right? Like, you can go over, if you want some Caribbean food, you can get Caribbean food, you can get Haitian food, you can get Mediterranean, you can get Brazilian, you can get basically whatever you want. So I did have a lot of friends from the Caribbeans, and I still do. And that's even a different type of conversation, right? Because I often say that when we talk about the diaspora of Black people, we also have to talk about an overlayer of immigration, because some people have an immigrant story also that sometimes is muddled into what they're talking about. So sometimes you get confused that you can't separate that there's also an immigrant story that's happening when you group Black people together. So I knew that from a very early age, that this person's parent actually comes from Jamaica or Barbados or Turks and Caicos or Trinidad, right? So I already knew that, like, oh, they also have an immigrant story, or someone comes from an African country, that's also an immigrant story. And New York City is just one of those places where people come from everywhere. We have people that migrate from all over the place. So then you have Southern people that come here and you're like, oh, you do that because you're from the South, right? Or you're from the West Coast or something, or something like that. You're like, oh yeah, I totally, okay, you're not an immigrant, but you migrated from somewhere else. So I understand. So that's very, very interesting. Do you want to talk about the Robert report? When are you on? This is my network mate, in case you guys have forgotten. Robert is part of the Black USA News network. So what is your show about and when are you on?
So thank you for that, Tasemere. So the show, the Robert report, shout out to Donnie. I was going to call it the Robert show. So Donnie said, no, call it the Robert report. And I was like, that sounds familiar. And then I titled it that. Then I started looking around. I forgot about the Colbert report. And so when I tell people Robert report, they be like, oh, the Colbert report. I said, I got that second. I didn't get that first. I forgot all about the Colbert report. And so it's come on. The show airs Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I generally do a 30-minute show. Yet if the interviewee is open to going longer, we can do an hour. It's no problem. There's no one. There may be someone coming on after me now, but since January 3rd, which was my first show, no one has pretty much come on after me. So I've had, I stop it at an hour. I can't keep going if the guest chooses to keep going. So the show, the premise or the mission of the show is to talk with individuals and or groups and examine their contribution to society and society development. So my undergraduate major at Howard was TV production. I did a lot of film work, live event production, but my main study was television. We didn't do a lot of TV scripts, but we did studio work. And so I was familiar with TV behind the scenes. I had forgotten that I wanted to do some screen time stuff until just now. So until I started this show. So from 2003 to 2012, I was behind the scene, and I gave it up after 2012. I went into a whole new path. I went into sociology. I went and started my first track at achieving a master's degree at George Mason University over in Fairfax, Virginia. And I'm leaving there, going to Mississippi, and I finished up at Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi. So I'm a master science holder in community development, which is a subset of sociology. So my professors were sociologists, so all intents and purposes I'm a sociologist. And so my focus on an individual contribution to society and society's development comes from that sociology track. Because one of the things I realized is that, and no offense to anybody, please, no offense to anybody, but most people on this planet are going to pass away, and their life will not mean a damn thing, and they will have not gotten any acclaim, will not gotten any notoriety, will not have gotten a word out of their mouth about what they like in a space where the world at large could see it. So they were going to die nobody. And I'm a nobody, so I ain't prepared to. I ain't gonna say I'm prepared to die nobody. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I wanted those authentic stories of people who, you might not ever hear about. I got a book publisher on there. I got her because I interviewed one of my friends who's a no offense, but he's a struggling actor. He's growing up in the ranks. But he was like, yeah, I know this book publisher next in West Point, Mississippi, which is 15 minutes from my hometown, just a one highway. So I called her up. She said, yeah, I'll do it. I got talking with her and found out she got a whole publishing company, black woman-owned publishing company in my area in Mississippi. I would have never known. Got one of the professors. He's a world-renowned sociologist. He was my first show. One of my best friend from Howard, well, one of my good friends. I won't say best friend because he got a best friend. So if you ain't best friend, you can call nobody your best friend. So one of my good friends from Howard. So his name Dr. Richard Turner. He's a psychiatrist. So Dr. Richard Turner hit him up one day. I said, hey, man, I want you to do my show. I said, I always liked the fact that you were tenacious about whatever you wanted to do. And he helped me out with just some struggles I was dealing with. Just not helping me out, just talking to me about some things. And he got on, we did an hour show about psychiatry. I really loved it. Last week I had a show, 2 weeks ago I had a show with another young lady I graduated from Howard with. She has a product line for women, basically women. I interviewed my neighbors, my cousins from Mississippi. They have a nonprofit where the wife is a master social worker, and the father just a blue collar worker working in a factory all his life. I interviewed them as a couple. They're starting a social work. They're starting a nonprofit to help out low income people in our community. And so I got a stack of business cards like about this thick, this tall, just that I've always kept over the years. It's probably like this tall. I probably got a stack of business cards that's about 8 inches tall that I never had anything to do with them. Because I've called them if I want to do some business with them, or I decide to do something, but a lot of it didn't pan out. And I'm like, what is my contribution to those people? And I said, well, shoot. When I got introduced to the show, I said, I can call every last one of those people, and I now have an asset to bring into their life. And that asset is I can record them and then send them the link and let them do whatever they choose with the show, with the link. And I give them an asset, they give me an asset. So now I can have the privilege to have 400 or 500 episodes. And I was like, that's how I can build my TV production career, which started back in like 2002. And this 20 years later, and I'm just not getting back in the field of video and TV production. So I found that this was a way for me to get back in by just talking to the normal average person and helping them get their message out, wherever that is, but also me being able to utilize my undergraduate as well as graduate degrees. Talking about TV production, giving people a platform, and then showing how they're showing their contribution to society.
That's amazing. I think you're doing oral history, which I think is important, and folk history, which I also think is important, because these are usually stories that are not passed down and people don't get to crystallize or memorialize their work in a meaningful way that can potentially live on when they're no longer here. So I think it's important to continue to interview everyday people. Everyone is serving a purpose of some sort. Everyone is doing something to contribute to the earth and their community, and being encouragement for people, or just being someone that is present for people. So I think that it's important. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with my viewers?
You know what? You did a show a few weeks ago with some children. And
are you talking about my kids that I presented that pitched at the brunch pitch?
Yeah. And so I was talking to Dunn, and he said that I don't know if it's those children or some more children have a show now.
Oh yeah, so, one of my founders, Zaria, actually has a show that comes on right after my show, Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called Dear Black Girl.
Okay. So I got a little cousin in Mississippi. Rolando will be 10 in June. So I was telling Donnie, I was like, hey, Donnie, man, I might want to give him a show. He said, hey, tell Tasemere, and maybe he can try to get him in. I don't even know if he want to do it. I'm just we were just talking. And so I said, man, I'm going to holler at you on air.
Oh, yes. I want my son. I know that you might not have seen this prior episodes, you will see me with a baby carrier. The baby in the baby carrier is Elijah.
Okay.
Elijah is now 1 and thinks that he's like too good to be my co-host all the time. But once he starts talking where we can actually understand what he's saying, I'm planning on giving him a segment. I tell him that these shows are coming up. I give him the rundown of the schedule, and he just decides not to show up. I don't know what's going on. He doesn't even want to talk in the background anymore like he used to do to get his voice heard. I don't know. Maybe he's too cool for my show now.
Can I tell you what it is? Can I tell you what it is?
I'm planning on having him say something about his thoughts once he starts developing them where I can actually understand what he's saying.
Can I tell you what it is?
What is it?
Don't get your feelings hurt. You gotta tell me your feelings not gonna be hurt.
My feelings are not gonna get hurt.
You haven't given him a contract.
You probably are right. You probably are right. I'm sure that he is like, what is in it for me, Mom? If I show up, what am I going to get? I'm sure he wants to negotiate. I'm quite certain. I don't know. I need an Asian. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to negotiate with the 1-year-old yet. I'm not sure.
Where I'm from, they call it "give me me." Give me me. Like, I need to see you, my mom, and I appreciate all you do, but I got things in life I'm trying to accomplish yet. I can't talk yet, but I know what money look like. I hear enough about it.
Well, we will see. I'm sure that he's formulating. I'm one thing for certain. I know he has thoughts. I know that they're happening because I know that we have debates back and forth, especially when I'm tattling on him.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm sure that he has some thoughts. I'm sure that he is going to share his thoughts with me. I'm hoping that I will be able to capture some of these thoughts to share it with the world of what he thinks about all the things that I'm doing or what he has to say. But this has been great. You're always welcome to drop by anytime you like. If I see you in the comments, I'm definitely going to bring you on air.
Awesome.
And it has been amazing spending this, hour and 7 minutes chatting it up with you, Robert. This is Tasemere, the host of Blackout Live from New York, with my interviewee, Robert Washington from the Robert Report, coming to you on Saturdays at 10:15 Eastern Standard Time. Robert has his show that airs Mondays at 8, so be sure to click the subscription button to tune in for all our shows.